start with the biggest story of the day, and that is the news that DeWanna Bonner is no longer with the Indiana Fever. It was reported last night that DeWanna Bonner had no intentions on returning to the Indiana Fever, and then the news broke today that the Indiana Fever had indeed.
DeWanna Bonner just quit on Caitlyn Clark and the Indiana Fever in a stunning act of betrayal that sent shockwaves through the WNBA. But her grand plan to force her way onto a new team has spectacularly backfired. Now, she's being blacklisted by the entire league, she's lost a fortune, and her reputation is in flames. This is the story of how a respected veteran destroyed her own legacy in a matter of weeks, and the instant karma that followed.
She said, "I want to sincerely thank the Indiana Fever for the opportunity to be part of the Fever franchise. Despite our shared goals and excitement heading into the season, I felt the fit did not work out, and I appreciate the organization's willingness to grant my request to move on, particularly at this point in my career. I wish the Fever great success as they continue to build around this dynamic group."
The news first broke with a sanitized, corporate-sounding press release. The Indiana Fever announced they had granted DeWanna Bonner's request for a contract divorce. In her official statement, Bonner politely thanked the organization for the opportunity and vaguely claimed that despite their shared goals, she felt the fit did not work out. She wished the young team great success as they continued to build. On the surface, it seemed like a mutual, amicable split, a professional parting of ways. But that polite facade was hiding a much darker and more chaotic story.
If another team claims her off the waivers, she gets her full salary. She gets her full salary if another team claims her off the waivers.
Behind the carefully crafted words, a respected veteran was actively quitting on her team mid-season, creating a storm of drama in a locker room that needed stability more than ever. This wasn't a fit issue. This was a deliberate choice to abandon a team full of young, impressionable players who had looked to her for guidance, leaving them to navigate the intense, suffocating media pressure surrounding Caitlyn Clark completely on their own.
I think that makes DeWanna Bonner look really, really bad. It makes DB look really, really bad. And it's the fact that she has told all other teams, other than the Mercury, don't sign her.
When a player's contract is terminated in the WNBA, they are placed on waivers. This means that for 48 hours, any of the other 11 teams in the league could have claimed DeWanna Bonner and her entire guaranteed $200,000 salary for the season. For a three-time All-Star with championship experience, getting picked up should have been a certainty. It was essentially a free asset for any team looking for veteran depth, a proven scorer who could have helped a contender or guided a younger team. The clock started ticking, but then the 48-hour window closed, and what followed was a deafening league-wide silence.
And look, I understand that's where she wants to go. Why didn't she go there in the summer? We know why, because she couldn't have got her max contract. And by the way, people are like, oh, they can give her the minimum. No, they can't. The Phoenix Mercury can give her a prorated $80,000 salary for the rest of the year. So she's only going to lose about 30K-ish. And she's only going to lose, she's going to lose about 40, 50K. Whereas they would have been only able to sign her earlier on. Well, they would only be able to sign her for nothing. Because again, we can't forget as well, the Phoenix Mercury cut Sevgi Uzun. The Phoenix Mercury have a bunch of players signed on hardships and a bunch of players that they can cut. Like they literally cap space magicked up. And as soon as cap space magics up for the India or for the Phoenix Mercury,
not a single team put in a claim. Every single franchise in the WNBA looked at the situation and collectively decided she wasn't worth the trouble, even for free. This moment stripped away any illusion that this was an amicable split. This was a league-wide rejection, a massive red flag that exposed just how toxic her exit truly was. As the dust settled on her waiver process, the shocking reason for the league's silence began to leak out from behind the scenes. Bonner was reportedly orchestrating a brazen power play. According to insiders, she was actively contacting other teams and telling them not to claim her off waivers. She was trying to manipulate the entire system to force her way to one specific destination, the Phoenix Mercury. The sheer audacity of this move is breathtaking. We've seen superstars in their prime, like Jimmy Butler, get heavily criticized for forcing their way out of situations they don't like. But Bonner, a 36-year-old player clearly on the back nine of her career, was acting with the leverage of a league MVP. She was demanding to pick and choose her next team as if she were a free agent, completely ignoring the fact that she had quit on a binding contract. She wanted to have it both ways, to abandon her current job but also maintain complete control over where she landed next. But her master plan had a fatal flaw, one that would expose the foolishness of her gamble and turn her dream destination into a potential nightmare. The Phoenix Mercury, the very team she had burned bridges and alienated the rest of the league to join, was reportedly hesitant to sign her. Sources indicated that the Phoenix front office was seriously concerned about bringing in a player who had just demonstrated a stunning willingness to quit on her team the moment things got tough. The Mercury were building positive chemistry with a young, hungry group of players who had completely bought into the system and were overachieving. Why would they risk disrupting that fragile ecosystem for a veteran who just proved she couldn't be counted on when adversity strikes? Bonner had abandoned Indiana with the assumption that Phoenix was a safe landing spot, only to find that the far shore wasn't nearly as welcoming as she had arrogantly assumed. The financial cost of this stunning miscalculation was just as damaging as the hit to her reputation. By clearing waivers unclaimed, DeWanna Bonner automatically forfeited the remainder of her guaranteed $200,000 contract with the Indiana Fever. When she eventually and inevitably signed with Phoenix, it was for a prorated veteran minimum contract. For the rest of the season, that deal would net her somewhere around $80,000. Simple math reveals the devastating truth: she voluntarily walked away from over $120,000. This wasn't a savvy business decision. It was a massive, self-inflicted financial wound, suffered all because she believed her own hype and thought she could dictate terms to the entire league. Her pride and her failed power play cost her a six-figure sum, a catastrophic misstep that made her look both incredibly selfish and profoundly foolish in the eyes of league executives and fans. But the damage wasn't just to her bank account or her reputation. The real human fallout was being felt by the one person who needed her veteran presence the most, Caitlyn Clark. When Bonner signed with the Fever, she was publicly positioned as the wise, experienced leader who would mentor the rookie phenom through the unprecedented storm of her first professional season. In early practices and preseason games, Clark was visibly excited to play with her, putting in extra effort to build chemistry and learn from the veteran. Instead of providing that guidance, Bonner showed her, and the entire young roster, that when the pressure mounts and the going gets tough, you can just quit and walk away. It was an act of pure professional abandonment. For one of the first times in her celebrated career, Caitlyn Clark was essentially told by a respected veteran teammate that she didn't want to play with her. That's not leadership, it's a deep betrayal of trust that left the league's brightest star and her team in turmoil. This leads to the most troubling and controversial question of all. Was this shocking move planned from the very start? It's hard to ignore the deeply suspicious timing of it all. Bonner first signed a lucrative, high-profile deal with Indiana, allowing her to soak up the unprecedented media attention and spotlight that came with playing alongside Caitlyn Clark. For weeks, she posed for magazine covers and played in sold-out arenas, benefiting directly from the Caitlyn Clark effect. Then, almost to the day that the Phoenix Mercury magically cleared up enough salary cap space to sign a player of her caliber, Bonner suddenly decided the fit in Indiana wasn't right anymore. It feels less like a spur-of-the-moment decision and more like a cold, premeditated conspiracy. Use the Indiana Fever for the money and the media exposure, then orchestrate a dramatic exit the second your preferred destination is ready to take you. If that's the case, it's not just unprofessional, it's a deeply cynical and fraudulent way to treat an organization, its players, and its fans. Perhaps the most damning evidence of Bonner's misdeeds is not what was said, but what wasn't. In professional sports, there's an unwritten code. Players often stick together. When an athlete has a dispute with a team or feels they've been treated unfairly, you'll often hear other players, especially fellow veterans, speak up in their defense. But in the wake of Bonner's exit, there was nothing. A deafening silence fell over the league's player base. No one came to her defense. No one endorsed her decision. This absence of support speaks volumes. It's a clear signal that her peers and fellow union members did not see this as a righteous stand for player empowerment. They saw it for what it was, a selfish act that violated the trust of her teammates and the professionalism of the sport. The silence is a quiet condemnation, proving that even those who understand the pressures of the game couldn't find a way to justify her abandoning her team. Beyond the personal drama, Bonner's actions have created a dangerous problem for the entire WNBA. Her mid-season departure sets a terrible precedent that threatens the very integrity of player contracts. If a respected veteran can simply quit on her team and manipulate her way to a new one with minimal immediate consequences from the league, what's to stop other unhappy players from doing the same? This could create a domino effect, empowering players to abandon their commitments whenever they're dissatisfied, turning contracts into meaningless suggestions. This is especially damaging for small market teams like Indiana, who rely on contracts to build stable rosters and can't compete with the glamour of bigger cities. At a time when the WNBA is experiencing explosive growth and fighting for mainstream credibility, having one of its veterans engage in such unprofessional conduct sends a terrible message about the league's stability. It suggests a league where chaos can erupt at any moment, a notion that could scare off potential investors and fans alike. In the end, DeWanna Bonner got her desired move to Phoenix, but at what cost? She torched her reputation across the league, lost over $100,000 in salary, and will now be remembered not as a champion or a respected veteran, but as the player who quit on Caitlyn Clark and the Indiana Fever. Her actions have set a dangerous precedent, suggesting that contracts are merely suggestions, and a player's personal wishes can override their professional obligations at any time. In an era of player empowerment, we often celebrate athletes for taking control of their careers, but DeWanna Bonner's story forces us all to ask where the line is between empowerment and entitlement, between fighting for what you want and simply abandoning your commitments. She may have just found that line, and in crossing it so spectacularly, she might have permanently and irrevocably tarnished her own legacy.